Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. It is great to have everyone here. I'm going to just take a little bit of time to say hello to whoever I see in the chat while we wait for people to get back from the commercial that they got sent to, and also to give a couple people time to get their notification and come on in. But so far, I see Sandy is here. Hello, Sandy. And I know Sandy is often working. So a lot of times Sandy can't respond in the chat, but it is good to see Sandy is here. Atheist Edge is in the chat. Atheist Edge, it's good to have you here.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah, good to be here again. I was here 3 weeks ago. Feels like you and I are becoming like Ben Affleck and Matt. What's his name? Matt Damon. Yeah, I just feel like we get paired up quite a bit lately. I like it.
Which one of you's Batman though?
He is. And Kitty's here. Hello, Kitty.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
And Mr. Bear is here. Hello, Mr. Bear.
Hi there. Hello. Thanks for having me.
And for anyone who's wondering, why is Granny on Wednesday and not on Tuesday? I've been kicking around the idea for some time of moving the show to a new day. And I was talking to a number of friends. I do like to try to keep it to sometime around midweek because I normally release a produced video either on Saturday or Sunday. And so then I need something midweek to kind of boost my ratings a bit. And so that's why I try to do the stream midweek to try to even out the views as much as I can. And one thing is I like Brainbug, and I really enjoy being able to do things with Brainbug and talk to Brainbug. And he said he'd like to be on the show too, but he had regular commitment on Tuesday nights, and same with Ethan. And so we looked and we said, well, Wednesday you're up against the line, and Matt Dillahunty, but a lot of times, it's not that easy to go back and forth between this show and the line because, frankly, I find call-in shows a bit boring. I don't tend to watch them much because people say the same things over and over and over. And Ox is in the chat. Hello, Ox. It's great to see you. Today I thought we would do something a little bit lighter and a little bit more fun. As I personally have not had that great a day, and I know Kitty hasn't had that great a day, and I know Jim hasn't had that great a day, and I don't know, I didn't get a chance to ask Mr. Bear yet, but on top of that, we've got the story, the big story in the news that Texas, their new abortion law has gone into effect, and so I think all of us can use a laugh. And so today we have gotten together to tell crazy church stories. And so we have come prepared to share stories of what we have experienced in churches over the years that have been a little bit zany or a little bit weird. And we're going to go ahead and let Jim Hall start because Jim is going to need to leave early. So Jim, you are up first. And what is your crazy church story for us?
I've got 56 minutes. That's a hard deadline. So that's a good amount of time. And I hate to go first because I wrote down 4 that I can think of. But
why don't
they're not very entertaining. And I think you've heard most of them.
Okay.
So, I'll just give you the titles and you tell me which one you want. Blamed for vandalism, kicked out of Vacation Bible School, hostile Q&A, or a church group got me fired.
I would like to hear kicked out of Vacation Bible School. I don't know about anybody else.
This is in the preface to my first book. Most people believe in God. Can they all be wrong? So I write it out there. I'm a cradle atheist. I don't have any actual church stories because I never really went to church per se. But from age 6 to age 8, my mom stuck me in Vacation Bible School just to get me out of the house in the summers, right? So that third summer, I was 8 years old, and my mom showed up in the middle of the day. I was like, "Mom, what are you doing here?" And then Pastor Simmons, the head pastor, right? And they went out into the hall, my mom and him, and they didn't know that I was over here, and I could hear everything. And I remember it to this day. And he basically laid down, "Hey, listen, I've been getting a lot of complaints from the instructors your son is causing a disruptive atmosphere. He's asking so poignant, hard questions, and it's influencing the other kids. I remember one in particular. I asked about Adam and Eve if they had belly buttons because I knew about what an umbilical cord was. I remember that. Just little things an 8-year-old, stuff we talk about all the time on our shows now, but as an 8-year-old, so it's not well formulated. It's just asking questions that just don't make any sense at all. And already the light bulb had already kind of come on, and I knew that this was all hooey. Yeah, I already knew. So when Mom pulled me out, anyway, Pastor Simmons said, we're going to ask that he go ahead and go, and he's not invited back next summer. This is at the end of the Vacation Bible School that summer. And so, yeah, that was the end of Vacation Bible School and going to church full time. But yeah, kicked out for being too influential, causing the other kids to have some tough questions.
It also sounds like they didn't have any answers. And if you can't even answer the questions of a child,
yeah, I don't know exactly their answers. It's been so long ago, but I think the general theme was you just have to have faith, that kind of deal. Yeah.
Mhm. Do you want to do a second story? We'll let you do a second story, and then we'll move on to someone else.
These are not, Kelly, I don't know why you're making me go first. These are not very entertaining.
Oh,
All right.
okay.
So the hostile Q&A, I think I told this one already on my show once, for those of you that haven't heard it. So Courtney and I, my co-host, we before the pandemic, we got invited pretty frequently to local churches. We put our feelers out there, and we do Ask an Atheist. It's usually in the evenings during a Bible study. But when they know we're coming, that Bible study of maybe a dozen people turns into a crowded room. It's usually a packed house when they know there's atheists coming. Because I would say the majority of these people have never actually seen an atheist with their eyes, and they want to see if we have horns growing out of our head or not. In fact, in the hallway afterwards, they always come up to Courtney. Every time they come up to Courtney, go, I saw you walking around before. I had no idea you were going to be on the stage, that you were one of the atheists. You do not look like an atheist at all. You're not. But no one ever said that to me, the frumpy, pale-skinned, middle-aged male with a goatee. I mean, I guess I'm exactly what they were expecting. But yeah, so we talk about what it's like to be an atheist. We do our little spiel. Courtney and I do maybe 10 or 15 minutes each. And then it's open up to the floor. And they have the microphones, the cameras on us. And it's usually very amicable. In fact, surprisingly so. But there's always at least one person in the audience that wants to get a little hostile or combative, confrontational. There's always one. I don't know if he's a plant, but there was one in particular. Everything he asked, it's really tone of voice. It's the tone of voice. It's not really what they're asking, it's how they're asking it. And you can tell they have, contempt in their voice. And every question he asked was like, so we just came from monkeys, huh? And every question had nothing to do with atheism. So I was going, I almost felt like kind of letting them down, because I was like, that has nothing to do with natural selection. That's science. Has zero to do with atheism. Is a philosophy, a subset of philosophy, subset of theology, actually. It has nothing to do with evolution. Now, granted, most atheists adhere to natural selection, and I can tell you about it the best I know how. I'm not an expert. So he's asking these non sequiturs over and over. And I'm sure you've heard this one, Granny, but this guy, we got to a point in the conversation where he said, if you choose to believe, blah, 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 blank, fill in the blank. And I said, you don't choose to believe. Belief is a realization. It's not a choice. You can't choose. And at the time I had a coffee mug in my hand, and
I have, this is a great story. I love this story.
I forget what color the actual coffee cup was, but I said, what is this? So I've got a black coffee cup here. You would agree with that? Yes. Okay. So for the next 20 seconds, I want you to believe, are you able to believe that this coffee cup is white? And he said, yes, surprisingly. I was like, okay. So I even set my watch. I was like, ready, go. And I gave it 20 seconds. And at the end, I said, Okay, what color is this coffee cup? He goes, black. What color was it during that 20-second period? White. So you firmly believe that coffee cup was white. You forced yourself to believe. You can do that on a dime. Yeah, sure. And and I saw people in the crowd shaking their head. Yeah, we can turn our belief on and off. It's a willful thing, which blew my mind. Anyway, that's not really a crazy church story. It's
Oh,
just
I think it's absolutely a crazy story because then my next thing would be obviously you are able to deny reality if you so choose.
good one. Oh, yeah. I got to get you
Because
up there next
that's
time.
yeah, that was the big thing for me is I went through so much of life with blinders on where if something didn't agree with my faith, I just didn't read it. Um, and when I finally stopped believing and I started realizing there's all this stuff out there that I don't know anything about. Um, it's like today I watched a video from Just a Walking Fish, and Just a Walking Fish will be a guest on the show in a couple of weeks. We have to set up a date and a topic, but he said this is really intended for people who have had at least some college biology. And I thought, well, that obviously excludes me, even though I had Biology 101. I took it in 1979. And I'm sure that 80% of what they learn in biology class today has been discovered since then. So I watched the whole thing and I got two really important concepts out of it. One was he talked a lot about mitochondrial DNA, and I had no clue what mitochondrial DNA even is. So I asked him, and he told me. And the other thing is, I've heard Vice Rhino a couple of times say that evolution is not linear, that these linear pictures that they show you in school are not correct. And I've seen the phylogeny trees, but I didn't understand how they were different. And he had an illustration on the screen that went, now I get it. Now I understand the difference of the relationship between the tree and the linear progression. So I don't remember where I was going with this at the beginning, but anyway, the point is that there's so much for us to learn, and there's so much that you don't see if you're spending your life denying reality. Um,
Yeah, that's good. I never thought of putting it that way.
Kitty, do you have a story you'd like to share with us?
Well, I have a couple. One of the funniest ones was actually it was funny, sad, and like funny, like all wrapped into one, because there was a friend I had in high school, and we got on great. We were in JROTC together. In fact, senior year, I was the corps commander, and he was my uh, vice commander. Essentially, we ran because the way ROTC was done, it was done almost like military, where you had the teachers, but for the most part, most things were handled through a chain of command. So there were people lower on the totem pole for each class that it would go to them first, and then it would come to us, and we were taught to resolve issues in there. But anyways, tangent aside, we were really good friends, and his family invited me to go to church with them. And it was specifically this church that every year does a passion play. So they invited me to that. And now my friend knew that I was not Christian, but it didn't matter to him. And I went, and we were at this thing, and they actually had livestock there. So they actually had some sheep and a donkey, and it must have been like, fate smiling on me or something that I was there for this one, because as they were leading the donkey along on the stage with Mary on top, the donkey decided that that was the best time to empty its bowels, and the actor playing Joseph slipped and
Oh
landed
gosh.
on his butt in the donkey. I could not stop laughing. I wasn't the only one laughing. So, like, it wasn't just the non-believer laughing. But it was hilarious. And yeah, so that's the funny part. The funny sad part was um when my friend's parents found out that not only was I not, a member of that church and did not want to be a member of that church, but that I wasn't even, their denomination or just Christian in general. They actually barred their son from spending time with me, and there was nothing to be done about it for in ROTC because we still ran everything together. But outside of school, we weren't allowed to hang out because of my lack of belief in their particular brand of woo. Which kind of sucks when you think about it, like limiting, like for no other reason other than you don't like that someone doesn't have the same imaginary friends as you. Like, I just never understood it.
I do, because I've been to a number of churches that hold to that rule, and I understand completely what the reasoning was, the rationale behind the rule. Do you want to hear it?
Oh,
You
please,
won't
by all
like it,
means.
but I'll tell it to you.
I would love
Yes.
to know.
Okay. The rationale is that anytime that you date someone, you are expecting them to be a potential mate. This comes from the purity culture thing, that you do not date anyone that is not mate material.
Mhm.
And if you wouldn't marry a person that's not a Christian, then you shouldn't date a person that's not a Christian. Um,
That
it
extends
be-
to friendships, like platonically as well?
it should not apply to a friendship. Although some people do go that far because they say, well, the friendship could blossom into something else. And some of them will say, you shouldn't be spending time with unbelievers. But then there's other people who take the complete opposite view and say, if you want to
Convert them.
win people to Christ, you got to go spend time with unbelievers.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I mean, eventually, once my friend got older, he, yeeted himself out of that situation because he found it incredibly toxic. And last I checked, he's now a practicing pagan, which is what I was at the time. So I must have made a little bit of an impact.
That's exactly what they were worried about.
To be
That's
fair,
exactly what-
his birth mother is too.
Mhm.
Like, it was his stepmom and his dad that had an issue, and they were the church people. His birth mom was also a practicing pagan, so it wasn't just me.
Hey, Kitty, in relation to your story, nothing takes away the majesty of the church than when you see a priest cleaning up, animal feces or baby vomit off the carpet. It's it's just it takes away that mysticism somehow.
Yeah, a
Mm,
little bit.
yeah,
You
and then when you
think, like,
and then when you
all-powerful God.
and then when you go back in for the next mass the following week, you can still smell it. It's it's that the majesty of the church. Just thought I'd just throw that little thought in.
Goodness. Like, that actually reminds me, like, one year, whatever oil they used actually caused a reaction on my skin for Ash Wednesday. So, like, I actually had a red cross on my forehead for like 4 or 5 days from
Oh
the
wow,
reaction from the oil. And like, I chuckled. I think it freaked the priest out a little bit, just a little bit.
Which
mark of the beast. Wow.
I know. I mean, they have to expect some people's skin's gonna react. Like, you're putting oil on someone's freaking forehead, along with whatever else additives you might have put in there,
It's really bad for teenagers too. They've got enough oil to deal with on their face, and then
right?
you're
Like,
putting
all you need is
more
just like
oil.
acne, just like a
Yeah,
cross
right
of
in the middle of
acne.
that. Yeah. And then you've got this red pimple-shaped cross on your forehead. Yeah.
You could always tell when it was Ash Wednesday because you'd see the smattering of students either with it still on their foreheads if they were good and didn't wipe it off. Like, I mean, some of them would wipe it off. Others, their parents wanted them to leave it all day.
I was
And
proud
yeah,
to
they'd
leave
end up.
my ash all day. Yeah, when I was a kid. Yeah, I
Yeah,
left it there
I remember
all
I
day.
used to leave it all day when I was forced to go through that when I was younger.
Yeah. It made me feel special.
Yeah, you feel anointed, like blessed for the day. Like everything's going to go your way that day.
Yeah. And then you realize it's ash that's making you feel special.
Yeah.
So bit of a disconnect.
I think the real thing that makes you feel special is the human contact. You know, the fact that the person blessed you and touched you.
Yeah, that's right. You look forward to that part in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a confirmation of you, especially as a kid. It's like they're confirming your existence and making you feel special. It's bizarre.
I like Harmonica Man's comment. Kitty, what the hell did you expect? Vampires can't touch holy shit.
No, I know. I mean, honestly, it's just a mild discomfort. I mean, kind of like heat rash in the summer. Like, it's tolerable. I'm not gonna like turn to ash myself or anything, but definitely not in my recommended beauty routine.
Well, I'm wondering if when the donkey pooped in the church, is that holy shit?
I mean, he was carrying a pregnant Mary, Yeah, no, I think that would count.
I'm amazed they didn't set up a stall immediately outside the church with jarred, donkey poo in it and hocking
Oh, there
out
you go.
$30
They could sell it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that church,
it's a niche market.
They didn't engage in a lot, like some of the mega churches will engage in a lot of like woo peddling of like Holy Spirit water or whatever. They didn't really do that. They were just more, they wanted everyone to go to their church and believe what they believed, and they would put on the Passion Play every year and sell tickets trying to get more people into the fold. But I will get them that they didn't go down the miracle holy water path. So that's at least one small point in their favor.
Jenny says a local church needed ash for blessings on Ash Wednesday. So I said I wanted to help and gave them ashes from my cremated atheist father.
Oh, wow.
And Mark Caesar says woo peddling or poo peddling.
A little of column A, a little of column B.
Your audience has jokes, man.
Oh yeah.
Shoot.
Oh yeah.
No,
They're
she's
the
got
best.
a great audience.
Yes. That's why I don't worry too much about the content of the show, because I know I'm going to get probably a quarter of the show just from the comments. Mr. Bear, what story do you have for us?
Oh, yeah, this is one that's stuck with me my whole life. I was 8 years old, and we used to go to Mass every Friday as good little Catholic kids. And the priest at my school, his name was Father Ward. In his 60s, imagine a priest from a Stephen King novel. This guy was always dressed in the black garb, hair parted to the side with Brill cream in there. He was just very thick black glasses, always very snappy. He was the least approachable guy you could have around kids. Not like the new ones these days. They're very progressive and cherub-faced and very happy to talk to kids. No, this wasn't that kind of guy. And he always was very strict because I used to help in the church, and he would be, no, that doesn't go there. This goes there. No, don't ring the bells. Don't do this. He was very snappy. So one day we went into church, and just as the Mass started, we were all filed into the pews. Just as the Mass started, it was a very grey, late wintry day. And as soon as he welcomed us to Mass, there was a flash of lightning, and very soon after, this loud rumble of thunder. So it was immediately over us, this massive storm. And we all jumped because it rattled the statues in the church. That's how much it rumbled. And then we sort of ignored it. The Mass went on. And then suddenly it started to rain. You could hear the rain on the roof. It was time for the gospel reading. So Father Ward goes up to his pulpit and he opens the book. And I think it was Gospel of John, because it was all about a parable of God hearing you. If you talk loud enough, God will hear you. So suddenly the storm is back, and the rain is getting heavier and heavier. And this was before microphones, so he's just using his voice, and and the rain is getting so loud, and you're saying, God will hear you if you say, and suddenly the rain was that loud, we couldn't even hear him anymore. And all we saw was this red-faced priest with veins bulging. We're like, I don't think God wants to hear you right now. And the church is rumbling, there's lightning, there's thunder, and we're just laughing. It was just hilarious. And he got to that stage where he was so out of control that he just didn't know what to do. So he just suddenly stopped the reading, got down, went through the mass really quickly, just did the consecration, did this, got everyone the Eucharist, and then the storm eventually just ebbed away to the point where right at the end where he said, okay, go in peace, there was another crack of lightning, crack of thunder and lightning. It was like, I'm done with you. I'm done with you. If that wasn't a message, I don't know what was. And it was just hilarious. And the reason I know it was true, because we've just told that story throughout the years with people I knew who were there. I used to think, because I thought for a while in between primary school and high school that maybe some of it was a bit in my imagination. But suddenly when we were 15, 16, 17, talking to friends, they were like, yeah, that day was hilarious. It was great because Father Ward was so out of his depth. And I suppose that was one of the nails that went into the coffin of in relation to walking away from it all, because it seemed to me that if there was a God, he wasn't happy with Father Ward.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the second little very quick story that I have was that church eventually got knocked down and they built a brand new church. And I was in my final year of primary school. I was about 12 years old. And they had this delivery of all the new pews, all the new wooden pews were dropped off outside the church, but no one had organized who to take them in. So all us kids were rounded up to carry in all the pews into the church. And Father Ward was, snapping at our heels. No, this goes there, that goes there, blah, blah, blah. And I'd only wish that there was another storm to come over to give him the message of reminder, No, don't boss kids around, Father Ward. You remember what happened last time. So yeah, it was very, very interesting. Yeah. But yeah, I'd say, I mean, he's been gone quite a while now, but it was funny at the time.
It would also be funny if Father Ward said that goes over there, and where he points, there's a lightning strike right over there. Whoops,
That's right. Yeah, no, no, that goes over there. Okay, yeah, yeah, but he wasn't the most approachable guy. If all the nuns and the teachers were always saying, "Please go and talk to Father Ward." And no one ever did. He was just he's just unapproachable.
Mm. An angry Christian.
Well, he was demonstrating how the Catholic doctrines helped you in your life and made you a happy, forgiving and loving person, an understanding person. Yeah. He was the demonstration of those doctrines in action. Yeah.
How old were you guys when you deconverted? Were you were Granny? You were an adult. I know that.
I was 58.
And Mr. Bear?
I would have been 44.
Okay, and Kitty?
Oh, hell, I left the church early. I was only about 12 or so
okay.
when I read the Bible and I was like, I don't like this. I don't agree with this. And so I started looking for a different religion, because it hadn't occurred to me yet to not choose a religion, to not have one. And I almost became a Buddhist, actually, because we had a neighbor who was a Buddhist, and I learned some of the chants from her. Couldn't remember them now, but she was like another mom to me, and so I almost did that. But then my gothic little heart found Wicca, and I was like, oh, reverence for nature, female empowerment, and I get to dress like the chicks from The Craft. Sign me up, So I was Wiccan for many years, and then even now I still consider myself Wiccan, just the atheist kind, like non-theistic Wiccan, atheist witch, doubly freaks out the Christians. And it's because I like the core tenet of Wicca: do what ye will, harm none. Because like I'm very libertarian. I think everybody should have full autonomy and do whatever you want to your own body as long as you're not impacting anyone else.
Mm.
So like that's just kind of stuck with me through the years.
Okay. There was a comment here from Atheist God that's kind of a little story, so I wanted to go ahead and bring in that story. And also, Harmonica Man said he has a story and asked if it was okay if he could tell it. Harmonica Man, I sent you a link on Twitter to join the show. Atheist God says, my mom went to Catholic school. She and Sibs spoke Polish, unbeknownst to the nuns who also spoke Polish. She overheard the nuns talking about the father impregnated one of the nuns.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Whoa.
I mean,
Wow.
honestly, though, I would rather that than going after the kids. I
Kids.
mean,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
as long as it was consensual, I do not think that there should be forced celibacy. Like that just is a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. But if it was consensual, then get yours, have fun, go for it.
I agree, but it's bad advertising.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. I mean, good. I'm the same. Good for them. I don't agree with the celibacy either. I think it's ridiculous. But yeah, how are they going to cover up that story? Okay.
Which
Immaculate
is a good
Conception only
lead in
works
for
once.
my story, because my story, and I want to give a bit of a trigger warning for my story, because my story is a crazy story, but it is not an amusing story. It's kind of a mild sexual abuse story. There was a man in our church that everyone called him Mr. Bill. And Mr. Bill was, just a minute, Randy is here. Hello, Randy. Randy,
Hi.
I'm just starting to tell a story. We'll let you tell your story right after. But Mr. Bill taught children's Sunday school for years and years and years. Mr. Bill was a huge man. He was about 6'6". He was at least 350 pounds. He was a huge guy. I felt kind of creeped out by him. And I told my husband a couple of times I didn't really want anything to do with him. And the thing that always was creeping me out was when we would always have a time in church service when you would go and you would greet people. And whenever he would greet me, he would hold my arm too long. And, I would want to let go and he would not let go. And the clear message was, you will leave when I say you will leave and not a moment sooner. And I just didn't want anything to do with him. And then one day the pastor asked that all of the children leave the church because he had an announcement for the adults. And he announced that Bill was no longer welcome in the church because 6 women had made allegations of sexual impropriety against him. 3 directly and 3 through their husbands. And he was not willing to accept the pastoral discipline, and so he was no longer welcome in the church. Well, about 2 months later, he was welcomed back into the church because evidently he changed his mind, decided he was willing to submit to the pastoral discipline. And because he was willing to submit to pastoral discipline, we had this big service where he was welcomed back into the church. And at the end of this announcement at this evening service, they said, for everyone to come forward and welcome Bill back into the church. When I went forward and to shake his hand, he took my arm and started to pull me toward him. And a few people had given him a hug, and I did not want to hug the man. So I dropped my head to prevent him from being able to pull me into a full frontal hug. He didn't care. He pulled me in so that I told you how big this guy, he is 3 times my size. I was in the tip top of my triathlete days. So I was down to 120 pounds at the time. So this guy was 3 times my size. He pulled me so that my head was right in the middle of his stomach, and he held me there. The pastor was standing 3 feet away, never noticed a thing. And I just stood there in that awkward position until he finally let me go. And I walked away and I said to my husband, I do not want anything to do with that man ever again. That's my crazy story.
Wow. Creepy.
That guy sounds like a villain in an Arnold
No good.
Schwarzenegger movie.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
He actually
Not that
called
that
me a couple
squarehead's
times
got
after
anything
that.
to teach.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
okay, now to get us back onto a lighter note.
yeah, that had been really creepy.
Now that I've taken us into
Sorry
a
to hear
really
that,
dark
Granny.
place. Yeah.
So, Granny, that happened as an adult.
Yes.
When you were-
Yes. I
Right.
was
Right.
I was probably about 45 at the time.
Hmm.
Somewhere between 45 and 48. And that was one thing I was grateful for, because he had taught Sunday school for kids for a long time, but all of the women that he went after were always older women. He never went after a woman under 35.
Hmm. Right.
And Mark Caesar makes a really
That's
good
like
point.
me being a blues man.
Never noticed.
You know, I
a
like
thing or
younger
chose
women
not to
about
say
40, 45. They can have kids, just not in the damn house. They got to be out to college or some shit. And lemon pie, 5 nights a week. No question about it.
Okay, Harmonica Man, I know you have a story to tell, but Jim still has 1 or 2 more, and I want to make sure that he gets all of his in before he
mine
has to
aren't
go.
that important.
You're not.
Let
Okay.
Harmonica Man have it.
Okay, we'll let
Flip.
Harmonica
Okay.
Man have the next turn. Go ahead,
Thank
Harmonica
you.
Man. What have you got for us?
When I was 11, we had this thing in our church, and I was raised penta crazy. So everything was just up in the air for questions. That's why we had our hands up all the time. Anyway, you know, here I am, a boy, sitting in the bench and, you know, trying real hard not to fart so the whole congregation can hear it echo. But the preacher had everybody in there down on their knees and had their heads right up there on the back of the next pew, you know, just repenting for their sins and wanted to wash clean everything for the week. And I'm like, wait a minute. I just did this the other night and made sure I didn't sin or do anything out of control at all for the past 3 days. I was just super devout. So I'm just sitting there like, this doesn't apply to me. I already done this crap, right? This guy looked kind of like Richard Madsen, except he had blonde and brown mix hair, and his beard was kind of more scraggly and stuff. So, you know, like a mini-me Jesus or some shit. Anyway, this guy was talking about, you know, how everybody needs to get down and repent and do this and do that. You know, we're on this path and need the whole congregation to stick together and do this thing so we can be holy. But there's one young man in the audience that's not doing it, and blah, blah, blah. And he's looking straight at me.
Mm.
And, you know, I said, I've already done this. And he said, it doesn't matter. You're still a sinner and you're still guilty and blah, blah, blah. So I went like this, got up and walked out. I walked home because we lived in town. So it was only a couple of miles. And I just spent the Sunday at home. Well, my parents stayed there at church, you know, and I have an older sibling and a younger sibling, sisters, both dumber than me, just FYI. Anyway, I'm sitting at home, and pretty soon they come home from church, and they said, girls, go to your room. You don't want to see this. And they started yelling at me and telling me how embarrassed they was of me because I did that to them. How dare I, you know, challenge. It was a challenge directly, apparently. So then my mom sat on me for a minute until my dad took his belt off, and then he beat me with the buckle. until my shirt ripped and the blood ran down and got my pants soaking wet. So I had to change and take a shower and all that.
Gosh.
Later on, they called the church up and they had, about 5 or 6 other people come, and they all decided that I had wickedness in me and that I was demon possessed. So then, it was about a week later or whatever, they pretty much all got together and came into our house, which was a really old house. So it was almost like one of those horror movies, that we lived in, just everything was just dark and gray and all that crap. So then they held me down and they was all praying and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not demon possessed or none of that crap. This is me. Well, that's just what a demon would say. And I'm like, what? So in order to let the demons out of me and everything, they had to cover my mouth and then start burning me with stove poker and cigarettes.
Oh my goodness.
And doing some chanting and repeating themselves and all this other stuff until they were satisfied. When I was finally fatigued enough to where I stopped struggling, that they decided that the demon was out of me. I was all sweaty and, you could smell the flesh and everything like that, and the old tobacco ashes and crap. And they decided that, finally, he's healed and everything. And Jesus took the demons out of him and blah, blah, blah. So I faked it for a really long time.
Yeah. You don't have any
But I
choice.
knew they were full of shit.
Yeah.
They were full of shit right from day one. And
How
I'm
old
sorry
were you
about
again?
swearing on your channel, Granny. I'm just
you're
used
okay.
to talking like this.
How old did you say you were?
It's just me. I'm a putz. 11.
11. Oh gosh. So you weren't old enough that you could just walk away.
No, and it didn't matter anyways. I mean, they got a divorce when I was like 14, and while they were separated, neither one of them wanted me around, so they just abandoned me about 30 miles from home and just left me there in the woods, in a campsite. So I learned real quick to be self-sufficient, and that's why I learned real quick to do survival, and that's what I did in the military. I taught survival courses and everything to SF, and it's pretty good, except that I just couldn't eat enough for some odd reason in my life. I'm so used to being so hungry all the time. I can't get enough to eat. So I'm getting a little chubby now, but I'm going to be 52 in a week, so that might have something to do with it. But that's my story for
This show keeps getting darker.
one of my
and
little
darker.
stories.
Yeah, we need it. We need
Oh,
to
it's
light
not- it's
to
not
lighten this
bad.
back up.
I learned a lot.
Goodness.
I learned psychology
Yeah.
real quick at a young age. I started studying at a young age. I was doing engineering and physics by the time I was 18 years old and working for the superconductor super collider down in Houston until they shut that down and decided to go over to CERN. I was the guy who was working on the frictionless bearings and everything before they decided to go right to straight magnetivity all the way around.
Randy, that is literally 15 minutes from my house. It's not Houston, it's Waxahachie. It's a little bit south
Is
of
it?
Dallas.
Because I did everything up here in Michigan.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But-
the name of the town is Waxahachie, and when they got most of the underground
Was it?
structure built before they moved to Switzerland, and they were going to change the name of the city to
Right, yeah.
Waxahachie, Adam Smasher.
That's
That would
funny.
have been a totally different town.
Yeah, I
here.
worked on that stuff.
Instead of rednecks and hicks, it would be Starbucks and scientists, and oh gosh, it would be such a liberal. Oh, it'd be so much different.
Oh, that'd be so awesome. Yeah, well, I was actually just in like a high school position, and I was in like one of these what do you call them, schools for like construction and small engines and stuff like that. Well, I was in one of those, and then I lost the use of my legs, and everything that I had was stolen. All my drafts and everything, because we didn't have computers and stuff. Um, all that stuff was stolen, and I saw some stuff coming out, and like Briggs and Stratton engines and Tecumseh, and then the U.S. Army, with their anti-radar tank paint and all that shit like that. And it's like, hey, these are my notes that they're telling us here on these programs. It's like, what the hell, because all that shit come up missing. Well, apparently the teacher decided to make some money, and I had a little potential apparently, so he sold all my ideas and everything to whatever person wanted to bid. And I was stuck not walking for 3 years. I had to teach myself how to walk again. And then after that, I become one of the Army's best runners. I had to sign waivers and everything for my health to get in, because I had the right to be there too. They weren't going to tell me to stop.
Mm-hmm.
That reminds me, I got to get some pretzels.
All that.
I'll be right back, gang.
Okay.
I'm going to get a freaking pretzel.
I'm
He's
sorry
hungry.
that happened to him, and you too, Granny. Religion poisons everything.
Mm-hmm.
That reaffirms it.
The more disingenuous would say, the disingenuous believer would reframe that, right? And they'd say, well, you went through that to become the better person you are now. They would reframe it. They would point to Harmonica Man's story and say, well, God was testing you with all that to become the person you are now. That's that's the convenience of religion and religious belief. They can twist and turn every situation or every life story into something that was part of a plan.
Yeah, that's like something I encountered on Twitter just a couple hours ago. I was on Paula White Kane's site. Everyone knows who Paula White Kane is, right?
No, I haven't heard of. Don't know that
Okay,
one.
she's one of these prosperity gospel people. She was
Oh.
pastor. She was President Trump's personal spiritual advisor.
Oh, that one.
Yeah,
Yes.
that one with the angels in Africa.
Yes.
There's
Okay.
a remix, a musical remix of that. Really funny on YouTube.
There is. Yeah, I know the one now.
Okay. Well, I was on her Twitter page, and she had I should just go ahead and read the exact tweet, because that's it really is kind of funny. She tweeted, "God will heal every place you hurt if you allow him to." And I said, "Tell that to all the people that died pleading with God for healing." And somebody responded to me, "He healed them completely."
Yeah. Huzzah!
They're dead. They're not hurting anymore. They're healed completely.
It's just a different state. That's right.
Right. Right. So, it doesn't matter what happens, no matter what happens. That's what God did.
That's right. That's why
Apologetics
Christians
is a
never cry at
slippery
funerals.
fish.
My response to that one was, well, then how come when Jesus healed people, they didn't just drop dead?
Oh, logic. That old enemy logic.
Purple says, and it seems completely fucked up that they go to God works in mysterious ways.
Oh,
and
they
Jenny
still
says
do. Yeah,
it was God's will. Yes.
absolutely.
And that's the one that really gets me. The Calvinists. And Jim, you know that I'm no big fan of Calvinists.
Oh, classic rant, classic comebacks. If you guys didn't see that show with Granny going after a Calvinist, that was awesome.
Oh, yeah, that was great. Yeah, that was
but
good.
The Calvinist doctrine says that God is in control of everything. And I've always kind of thought, okay, but they backpedal, and they do backpedal a little bit. Okay, man's sin does cause some things. But I've been absolutely astounded that some of the major theologians like Piper have gone full saying, no, God's in charge of everything. If you were raped, God was in charge of that and he was in control of that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, I, yeah, I can't even. I can't even. I can't even figure out what to do with that.
Mm. And I learned something about Calvinism last year. I was looking into it, where they have this idea or belief, I should say, that is it true that God selects those who will believe during their life and those who
No,
won't?
that's the Arminian.
Is that? Oh, okay, right. So that's a different. Yes, that's right. That's what I was reading. I think it was a different. Is that a different? Is that a different angle or something? Is it
Well, okay.
an older belief? Is it?
Well, okay. The Calvinist belief is that God chooses,
Okay.
and but it's not based on anything. It's God just he chooses who he will and he rejects who
Mhm.
he won't, and there
Mhm.
is no basis for the choice whatsoever. There's a
Okay.
lot of people though that think that man has to have some kind of choice in the whole matter. And so the
Mhm.
Arminian view is that man chooses. And there's kind of an in between view, which is what you were saying, which is,
Okay.
yeah, God makes the choice, but he makes the choice based on what man's choice is, which is really stupid because the man's doing
So
the choosing. I mean,
this is like that this is like that conundrum where
Confusing.
yeah, there's that conundrum of the family who go on holiday, and they go on holiday and they sit there and the father says, oh, the father thinks we should do something entertaining, and he says, how about we go someplace? And the mother says, thinks, I'll please my husband, I want to have a good time, yeah, let's go someplace. And the kids say, we want to make our parents happy, so yeah, we'll go. They all go to this place where none of them wanted to go to, but they made the choice to go there. And then they all come back disappointed because they never wanted to go in the first place. But it's kind of
Yeah.
like that. It's kind of like
That's called the
bouncing back.
Abilene. That's the original
that's what I
story.
was
It's
just
called
gonna
the
say. I've heard
Abilene.
that is the Abilene story. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
about
yes, that's it.
Abilene
Yes.
Paradox, and it was going to get ice cream, and it was an hour away, and no one wanted to go. Yeah,
That's right. That's right. That's what this kind of
Well,
reminds me
Abilene,
of, right? It's kind of like
Texas.
God.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
know
That
the
so real
vast,
quick.
crazy
song,
Lord.
Abilene, my Abilene.
no, that's Amarillo by morning, but it's near Abilene.
So
No.
Randy,
No, not even close.
Randy's
kidding.
eating candy corn. I actually have
Mm,
this amazing stuff. It is candy corn drizzled popcorn. It is a kettle corn with a candy corn drizzle. It is amazing.
Ooh,
oh wow.
It's
I might
That
get
does
some of
sound
that.
good.
But I got these at the dollar store for $2, a big old tub, and my doctor is pissed because I'm a diabetic. Screw
I was
him.
thinking about telling a
It's
story
almost
about Robin.
Halloween.
But Elisa Schrock is
No.
in the chat. And Elisa Schrock is a childhood friend of Robin's. I think I'm going to go ahead and tell the story anyway because Elisa's never heard the story. Even though Elisa and Robin were childhood friends, they were friends from Girl Scouts and from school, but Elisa didn't go to our church, and this is a church story. But when Robin was about 6, 7, somewhere in that range, Robin was doing this children's program, and they were singing this song, and Robin and the boy next to Robin kind of got into a bit of a tiff and started pushing each other. And all through the song, they were just pushing each other. I was so embarrassed. When we got home, I really gave it to Robin and said, well, verbally, that I was so embarrassed. I was so humiliated that Robin was behaving that way in church.
I think
Everybody's muted.
I think that's the other thing that was funny about going to church is that the crying babies and the things that were out of control, they were just inherently funny.
Mhm.
And no matter how much you try to, it's like laughing at funerals. No matter how much you try not to laugh, it's objectively hilarious. You just can't get around it.
I actually
Just
was
remember
in a
the good
church
times people give you.
recently.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So,
Jane.
I was in a church recently because one of my partner's brother was getting confirmed, and now he's a teenager, and it's like he's doing it because it's what his mom wants, but he's not being forced. Like it's his choice, so it's like what he's in high school, he's making that choice. I'm fine with it, but there are other members of the family that like refuse to be there, and now like it's known that I'm an atheist. In fact, the person that acted as godfather is also an atheist, and like I got to meet him and we were chatting it up. I actually made a costume for it where I made myself a plaid pleated skirt and a little vest, and then I got this cute little like bishop sleeve top at Target, and I had an energy drink with a pentagram on it that I was sipping, not in the church. Like I finished it before we got there, but I had my own little chuckle. I had like really dark
Excuse me.
purple hair, my little skirt and vest, and like I loved my little outfit. And I brought my son with me. Actually, it was his first time in the church, and it boggled my mind that a child with autism who had never set foot in a church before was the most well-behaved child in the entire freaking church. Like so many of the kids were getting into everything. The most my son did was when he realized that the little like knee cushions at the back of the pews could go up and down. Like he wanted to put it down, so I just put my foot there so that he couldn't. But other than that, like he was so well behaved, like just off in his own little world. Like he seemed to have fun, like he didn't really care about what was going on, but he literally was the most well behaved child there. And I got a chuckle out of that, and I was like, man, I forgot how much a Catholic mass is a workout, where you're sitting, then you're kneeling, then you're standing, then you're kneeling,
Up
then
and
you're
down, up
sitting, then
and
you're
down.
kneeling. And I'm just like, fuck me, like God damn. Like, no. Like, if I want this, I'll go to calisthenics.
Works the thighs. It's very good for the thighs. And you get
I
a bit
have
of
another.
and you get a snack in the meantime. It's good.
Yes. In the Protestant church, you only get a snack once a month or once a quarter, depending on the church you go to.
Oh, that's just tight.
Wow, so much for taking care of the poor and the hungry, eh? Come
Well,
back
it's not
next
supposed to
month.
be
You
for the
missed out.
hungry.
Okay, Jim, I think you had a story to tell next, didn't you?
I think I'm going to just do these last two really quick. I got to leave in 5 minutes. I'm just going to rattle them off
Okay.
if you guys want to hear them.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Go ahead.
I got blamed for vandalism when I was, I guess 13ish. Our Boy Scout troop met in a church, and when we came to our session one day, the church people were like, someone vandalized the organ, the keys. Someone carved 666 in the organ keys, and they knew I was an unbeliever, and everyone was looking at me and pointing the finger
Mm.
and talking to the scoutmaster, and they had no evidence except I'm not a Christian. And at the time, I was 13. I was just kind of, I couldn't defend myself that well. The scoutmaster was awesome about it. Not only did he defend me, he said, "Oh, you want to keep, accusing my scouts of doing this? You have no evidence whatsoever." So we packed up, and so we had it at his house from then on. All our meetings were at his house, which is awesome
Cool.
of him. Second thing, I used to, my side gig, I used to teach Spanish at the local high school as substitute teacher, and the pay was shit, but I liked the job. And so myself and another atheist, we had every fall here in town. There's a fall festival, and there's booths. You put your little tables with the covering, the awning, and so everyone's got their little booths, and we will set up a table for Metroplex Atheist and Midlothian Free Thought, little atheist organizations in the area, and we had a table full of Freedom from Religion Foundation literature and different things you can, just answering questions. People come by, and you can imagine, Deep South, everyone's coming by. What got me, I can handle all the people and their nasty comments, but two on-duty uniformed police officers, one in particular, came around at least 4 times and just telling it. I mean, stuff. He started off with, it's such a shame to see this, just little off-snide comments, but it got to where, like, you guys know you're going to burn in hell, that kind of stuff. It got worse and worse. And then eventually, there was a church group was going through the festival together, and they came to our table. They blew an O-ring. They set up a prayer circle. They were holding hands. They prayed right in front of us. And then I recognized one of the kids. He's a teenage boy. He's one of my students, my Spanish students. He came over to the table, and we're talking back and forth. Me and my buddy are sitting behind the table on, like, those cinder blocks, upright cinder blocks. We use that as chairs, so we're sitting on those. So he got really kind of belligerent, and that's okay. I'm just sitting there calmly. But then he leaned over, put his hands on our literature, and was messing them up, and it was all the literature's falling off. He's really just messing up our table, whether he knew it or not. And so I stood up. I was going to ask him politely, but when I stood up, I guess I'm not that intimidating, and I didn't come at him. There's a table in between us. I was just like, please, could you not mess up the literature? And then the cop, I saw his eyes light up, like, here's my chance. And then as the cop's walking up, I think the kid's mom said, we're going to pray for you, which always seems like an attack. It always does. And I said, and this is what got me fired. I said, saying you're going to pray for me. And this is as the cop's coming up. So he heard it too. Saying you're going to pray for me is just exactly like saying you're going to masturbate for me. It's only going to make you feel good, and I'm going to get nothing out of it. And so the cop wrote me, not a ticket, but wrote me a warning citation for disturbing the peace and threatening children. It was just bullshit. It was a field citation. It was just we're going to put this on the record, but no fine, and it's not. It wasn't an actual ticket. And and there you have it. And so that, of course, that's the whole church.
Wow.
And that's the kid. So it got back to the administration, and literally, 2 days later, I'm sitting in the administration office, and I was secretly voice recording the whole thing, and I couldn't get her to say why she was firing me. She was stepping her. People can fire you if they want to fire you for your religious beliefs. They can find another way around it, because they know that's illegal, and they know they have to be careful. Yeah. Anyway, that's mine.
Okay. Junie has a comment here. Junie says, we were at a Catholic church for the last funeral. My daughter was also well behaved. Unfortunately, it was for a death in the family from COVID. A daughter-father duo, 2 weeks apart, died. Wow, that is rough.
Wow, that's terrible.
An atheist God says, I only went to church for funerals. I was about 8 years old. The thing that scared me was the bloody Jesus on the cross. I remember asking my mom, what did that guy do?
Bounce, guys, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and hopefully you can do it again.
Good seeing you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. Take care.
Thanks for
thanks.
coming.
Take care.
It was great having you.
The stories were cool. They were good.
Try not to be a straw man anymore.
I've got a story about a time that I went to it was kind of an adult Sunday school, but we did it in people's homes rather than at the church. And this one was at a home that was in our neighborhood. So we walked there, and I walked there with my husband, and this was in the middle of the dark years. And someday I will explain what the dark years were, but I'm not ready to do that yet. So when we got to the driveway and we're walking up the driveway to go in the house, I'm thinking to myself, okay, mask firmly in place, smile planted on face, pretend all is well and good, because we are happy Christians. So we need to look like happy Christians.
Mm-hmm.
And we
Mhm.
walked into the house and we sat down and we started the Bible study. And about 5 minutes into the Bible study, one of the other women there said, I just love coming here. It is so great to have a place where I could just let down my hair and be myself. And I started to chuckle because I thought, I am not myself. If you had any idea who I am and what I'm feeling right now, it sure isn't this smile that I have plastered on my face.
Yeah.
Mm.
Doesn't that send a shiver into your heart when you realize that your mask is someone else's reality? Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Scary,
their true
actually.
self. Bruce Wayne and Batman type of thing. Very strange. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know what happened
But
to
if
her?
only we could all be that rich.
Mm.
Do I know what happened to that woman?
Yeah.
No, I think she's probably still there.
Yeah.
That was the last church that we went to before we moved to Alabama. So most likely she's still there. She was happy there.
Yeah. Yeah. If they're happy, they're happy. I can't change. You can't judge that. But in contrast to your life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Did anyone notice the sign that I had on the thumbnail for today's show? It was rather an amusing church sign.
I didn't have a close look at it. No.
I didn't.
Here, I'll
I
bring it
didn't
up.
really look at it very close either.
Let me get to where I can share that.
There are so many good signs out there.
Yeah.
Some of them are unironic as well, which makes them even more funny.
There you go. Jesus is touching you.
Yeah, that's right.
Mom, he's touching me.
Whoa.
I drove by one once that said the best place to be is on your knees. Like it wasn't photoshopped. I saw it with my own eyes at a church I
Yeah.
passed here in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
those ones are great.
insane. Like, ugh. Then I saw one where it was like, this one I saw a picture online, so it may or may not be real, but it was basically like saying that Lucifer was the first one to Lucifer was the first one to ask for equal rights. And I'm like, wait, is this supposed to be like pro Lucifer or anti equal rights? Like what?
Now, the
yeah.
idea is supposed to be that you're not supposed to ask for equal rights. You're supposed to be happy with being subordinate.
You're supposed to know
That's
your place.
the entire idea. You're
Mhm.
guilty for existing.
Mhm.
And how do you become not guilty? By being a submissive and believing really, really hard that you are guilty, and you constantly need to ask for forgiveness for simply existing to something that's imaginary but is going to come back and commit genocide on everyone's ass, and then only pick a few to go kiss his ass for the rest of all time, because that's love.
It's a religious concept introduced as a religious solution to a religious concept. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no equal rights in any kind of religion like that. It's just, it doesn't exist. Anything that causes you to be submissive to any kind of tyrant, there's no rights at all.
It's essentially what Islam means, right? Islam means submit, right? It means to surrender.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Islam.
I thought it meant hot desert.
It means actually to submit yourself, to surrender to Allah. It's basically what it means.
Ah.
So a very common thing.
Learned something today.
I'm trying to pull up a different sign. I saw the comment from Junie that Junie is considering doing a whole show just on signs that she
cool.
passes, and
That'd be great.
Ooh.
yeah, that would be. There's one that's not too far from me that I pass every time I go to Auburn, where Robin goes to school. That's rather famous, and I was just pulling that up.
There was one around the corner from me when COVID hit last year. It was a residential house, and they simply put up 2 big cardboard signs on their front lawn to say you can come here to worship Jesus, okay? Because the church had closed up. Unfortunately, what they did was they did that mistake where they put 2 boards together side by side, but they'd written, yeah, you can come here to praise Jesus on one board, and on the other board they said come anytime, blah blah blah. So when you read it together, it said you can come anytime. It was completely wrong. It just had the wrong, it was like you say, it was like come here on your knees, you can come anytime, blah blah blah, but but it just didn't make sense. And yeah, that seems to be very typical of that type of home church type of setup.
This sign is rather famous and is not that far from where I live.
Huh.
Ah.
You know what? I don't think the devil
Ooh,
ever
okay.
collected wheat. I don't know why he always has a sign.
Yeah,
That's not even the
that's
devil. That's the
What's he
reaper.
He's the devil's reaping.
I know
Okay.
because I was a reaper. I got a knife that looks like a scythe and everything that went to my division, code name Reaper. It's not the devil. That was my buddy Jeremiah.
Maybe there's job cuts in the afterlife. Maybe death got, retired, so the devil had to step up. Don't know, multitasking.
Yeah. Well, maybe
It was
he
a
got
show.
COVID.
Yeah. COVID got the Reaper.
I don't know if any of you guys remember. It was a show that aired here in America, and I believe it only had 2 seasons, but it was called Dead Like Me. And it had
Yes,
the
yeah,
actor
yeah.
that played Inigo Montoya from The Princess Bride as like the head reaper, and
Yeah, it was a
people
good show.
ended up who weren't good enough to like go to the afterlife. They ended up having to basically work it off as a reaper, and like I kind of felt bad for the main character.
Hold on.
Like,
That was Rupert, the guy who played Montoya. Dead Like Me.
yeah, whoever
was
the boss
the head
reaper was, I
reaper.
forget his name.
Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah. But like
There's a
I
few.
love the
They
way
changed.
they opened the show, because like in the very first episode, they say there's a voiceover from the main character, and she was like, bad people get punished by society's laws, where you see like a robber like turn the corner with the bags of money and get like gunned down by the cops, and then she
I
goes,
thought you said
and
fat people. And I thought,
No,
what?
bad. Bad people get punished by society's laws, and a bank robber gets killed by police. And then she says, and good people get punished by Murphy's Law. And it shows a woman with a can of tuna trying to get a cat out of a tree, and she falls and like breaks her neck. And then the cat just jumps down to eat the tuna. It's a dark comedy.
It is. It's very well done. I liked it.
It
I thought
is.
it was
It was good.
Yeah, it was
And the
clever.
main character,
Yeah.
George, she dies in the very first episode. And it's because of falling space debris. To be specific, a toilet seat from a Russian spacecraft. That's how she died.
It's original.
It's interesting. I think it's on Netflix.
And her
It's definitely
sister,
worth checking
her little
out.
sister goes crazy because she misses her, and she goes and finds this tree just out in the woods around her neighborhood, and then she goes and she steals all those toilet seats from her school and
Yep.
hangs them up in this tree. And her mom's like following her along. She's like, "What's wrong with my daughter?"
It's such a see. I love I'm not usually one for comedies, but I like dark comedy. Like horror is my favorite genre, if you couldn't tell. But I do appreciate dry wit and dark comedies, and like that show was amazing.
I like Deadpan. Deadpan is my favorite comedy.
What was the Pushing Up Daisies? I think was another one that
Never
was
heard
pretty
of it.
interesting. It was about a guy with a supernatural ability that he could like touch something and bring it back to life. So like he used his bakery, like fruit that was kind of rotted or molded, he could get for practically nothing, and then he could touch it and it'd be perfect again. But he ends up bringing a person back that way, and chaos ensues.
Oh, that sounds interesting. I haven't heard that one.
It was really interesting.
I'm a big fan of 6 Feet Under
I'm sorry.
as well. That was a
The
great
harvest trucks are going by.
Just mute yourself for a minute. Elisa says, growing up, Christianity was all about submission. You have to ignore your own feelings and pursue an ideal vision of reality. It's like living in another world in your head. Yes, exactly. That is exactly what it is. And that was what was the big, eye opener for me when I stopped believing was, oh my gosh, all this time I thought I was feeling a God, and it was just me all along.
I've heard that's different for women as well, in terms of the concept of submission being taught to you as well.
Yeah.
It's always 1 Timothy. It's always those sorts of, verses being thrown at you.
What's worse is when it's on Mother's Day. We're going to honor the ladies by telling them how they need to be submissive.
Yes. Let's honor our mothers by letting them cook something for themselves.
Right.
That's how we'll honor them. Yes.
Oh, one other crazy story I've got. I was rather young. I was in my 20s, and we went to this church. My husband and I were fairly newlywed. We didn't have kids yet. And the people in the church were all up in arms because they were talking about passing a law that would allow for meditation in school. And the whole reason they were going to do this is because laws allowing prayer in school had been struck down. And so the schools were saying, okay, well, then we'll just have a moment of meditation instead. And the people at our church were just frantic with how awful this was going to be. This is going to be the end of civilization because
meditation.
Because we're inviting transcendental meditation into the schools, and now the schools are going to be teaching transcendental meditation to the kids, and they're going to convert all of our kids to transcendental meditation.
Oh, wow. There's no way you could turn into yourself and examine your own thoughts and feelings. No way. Let's put a stop to that straight away.
9 times out of 10, when a child is introduced to something wacky and new like that, they're like, huh? That's stupid. And they don't just automatically believe it. They just, that's just weird and stupid, and it just doesn't sound like it works. But there's always that one adult that says, well, it is, and I'm the authority, and I know, and because, and then X, Y, Z, without a real explanation. It's always an appeal to a greater mystery, but just believe it anyways because I said so, authority figure, adult, blah, blah, blah. And then sooner or later, some kids might believe it because they're used to that type of environment, and other kids are like, you're dumb. I don't care if you're an adult or not, you're dumb.
Lord Bryant has an interesting story here. He says, this didn't happen to me, but I remember an incident with a pastor going out with someone's daughter. Granted, she was old enough to consent, mid-20s, but the church revoked his license. And they kicked him out for good. He is now churchless. Yeah, that's.
Wow.
I'm wondering what faith he was, because obviously if he was a Catholic priest, that would not be permitted. But most Protestant ministers are permitted to date and marry. So I don't know that. Yeah,
that's right. It would have been a particular branch, or
sounds like he is a horniest or whatever.
And Mark Caesar says he needs to clean his navel.
Yeah, that was the
Oh,
funny thing about the
boy.
Catholic Church when my parents, my mother was seeking a divorce from her father, and it was for the better. And it was one of those situations where she was raised in the Catholic Church where the head priest always said, you need to come to me straight away about anything. Come to me first, even before your parents. Yeah, this was how she was taught. It was always go to the priest. And he will help you with anything at all. So when she went to the church to seek their approval to end the marriage, she was essentially cast out and ignored. So, because it's not in line with the catechism.
That.
It is in a way. It is in a way that it does. The catechism actually sort of says, it's happy to support people who want to end their marriage because of bad circumstances. But his interpretation of that fueled his beliefs and decisions. Okay, so because of an interpretation, shock horror of doctrine, that was the end of that relationship after 30 odd years.
My grandmother was
sad.
actually excommunicated from the Catholic Church because she divorced my grandfather, who was an alcoholic and an abuser, and adulterer. But this is back in like the 70s.
Yeah, this was the 80s.
So-
Yep. Same situation, adultery and all this
Yeah,
carry on. But no, it wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
Lord Bryant
Most
says
of my
that
relationships
pastor
are about
was
6 to 10 hours.
non-denominational. And so, yeah, non-denominational, that could mean just about anything. The church would make its own rules, and they wouldn't be following any particular denomination's rules. So it would have been the church's own rules. Yeah.
Which would have been their truth that they would have been
This
teaching.
stuff is confusing. There's no
It's the
really
truth.
set rules
It's the
unless
truth.
somebody is there telling you these are our rules specifically.
But even when it's their rules, it's their interpretation of the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're all different. That's what I'm saying. It's just very, very confusing. So,
Seems very
why not be
subjective,
like
you
me,
could
become
say.
a blues man, and get drunk and
Well, the
womanize
thing
all
that I
damn
keep
time.
bringing
That's
up on
awesome.
The thing I keep bringing up on Twitter when people argue, when different Christians argue different views, or I point out that there are different Christian views, I go, if only there was a God that actually knew what the truth was and could communicate to you.
Right.
If only. Yeah. This is the thing. If there was, it would be taken for granted.
Yeah.
It would simply be. There would be. It's like the sense of smell. It simply would be. That would be it.
Is this a private joke, Bear?
Oh. Lord Bryant. Yes, I made the connection. Hello, comrade. I chat with him on Twitter.
It's a Russian thing.
Speaking of sense of
We're
smell
spies.
being taken for granted, like there's something that like people aren't really talking about, like with COVID. A lot of people have like talked about the fact that people are losing their sense of taste. However, there's more to it than that. There are some people, a rare subset of people, that their sense of taste actually gets skewed to where everything smells or tastes of like rotting meat or garbage. And they're dealing with it for
Ooh.
months. Like one guy said he wanted to end himself. It was so bad. I think Vox actually did like a little like expose, so to speak, on it. But like, go get vaccinated. Like, you don't want to risk that being you, because can you imagine not wanting to eat ever again because everything from toothpaste to, gourmet dishes just reeks like you've been dumpster diving?
Elisa says this has happened to
That's
her.
gonna suck.
She says,
Wow.
everything I taste is wacky ever since December. So this has been going on. Wow. Elisa, I am so sorry that this is happening.
That's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry that's going on. That's really gotta suck. That's one of the
Try
most
to imagine that.
pleasurable things in life is taste.
Mhm.
Foodie. Yeah. Self-confessed foodie. Yeah.
and then being told it's something different later on,
Mhm.
but don't do nothing with it. just the caveat.
Lisa says chocolate
Oh,
tastes
good
Oh,
venison.
wow.
burnt. Garlic is unbearable.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine.
I love garlic. Garlic bread is like a staple food for me. If I could not have garlic bread,
Uh-huh.
I would cry.
I was chuckling at Clockwork Rex's comment. Everything has always tasted like chicken to me, except chicken.
Interesting.
Excuse me.
Well, Granny, you asked earlier if I had good news, and I do. We've all tested negative today. We've been in isolation for 13 days. My son had COVID, so
Oh,
Okay.
so we all
Good.
came back negative today. So we're out of
Very
isolation. We're
good.
free as of today, and it's also Mrs. Bear's birthday. So it's been a really
Aw.
good day today.
well,
Oh,
happy
nice.
birthday.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm glad
So-
you had a good day.
Yeah, it's been a good one. Yeah,
Good.
Yeah.
just so you know, there is some good out
Once you
there.
think about it.
Mm.
I have a little bit of good news too.
What's your good
I'm
news,
starting to get out there and gig again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nice.
I'm going to one place near me. I've been invited to, and actually, I'm overbooked. People are asking me, to come to their gigs and everything. But I'm playing a festival this weekend for 2 days, and I'm camping down there. It's about 70 miles south of me, and all my food was paid for. I'm just going to sleep in my van and on my friend's property. Got a big old pig roast and everything. And apparently, he's been telling the town about me, and I get to play for their Labor Day festival and parade and all that stuff. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And if, depending on how things are going, if I'm on a stationary stage and there's about 1,000 people there or more, I'm going to do a live show.
Oh,
Nice.
And I'm just
Yeah,
going to have
fantastic.
the computer here behind me and the rest of the guys, and we'll, join in with the crowd. And you get to see me throwing out rubber chickens and whoopee cushions and crap like that. And I usually have a pretty fun concert, jump out there and interact with people and, wail on the harmonica and stuff. And just so I need the publicity and everything. So it's really good that I'm doing this. I just don't know what it all entails. Just show up down here and you got 2 days of gigs going on, and we're going to pay you a lot of money. Okay. So it's kind of like living the life of the Blues Brothers,
Mm.
which
Sounds
is
so
fine.
Leads
cool.
us right
Yeah.
into what I was planning to do next, which is our time is coming to a close. And so I was going to ask everyone to take this opportunity to shill for whoever you would like to shill for before we close out. And Harmonica Man has just told us about, and when is this concert?
Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday. Okay, very good. So we will watch your
Mhm.
channel. Because Harmonica Man was a surprise guest, the link to his channel is not in the description right now, but I will get that in after the show. If anyone in the chat who has a wrench, which I know a lot of people have wrenches from the previous game, wants to throw up a link to his channel for me, I would appreciate that. And Kitty, what do you have coming up?
Oh, I don't have all that much. Like I haven't been streaming or doing stuff. I've been doing some stuff on TikTok. Mostly just little clips of some of the things I'm sewing because I'm getting together like an initial
Mhm.
offering, so to speak, for an Etsy shop that I'll be opening up after everybody telling me that I should. Chris and I are going to go ahead and do that. So right now I'm just trying to get all the designs worked out and make sure they stitch out properly. And while I'm doing that, I'm just posting little clips of it to TikTok. But I've been feeling a little under the weather lately, so I haven't been doing as much. But yeah, that's pretty pretty much it. I'm glad that I was able to come here though and chat with everybody. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been great having you again. It's been a while since I've had you on.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Bear, what do you have coming? Thank you, Junie, for putting up the link for Mr. Harmonica Man, for Harmonica Man's channel.
Well, I've
Thanks,
got.
Junie.
I'm looking forward
Junie
to
is a
talking to
sport.
Dr. Josh Bowen in a couple of weeks. He's coming on my channel.
He's lovely.
Cool.
So
Cool.
we might see a slightly different side to him, maybe a bit more of a wild side to him. We'll see. I'll try and ask him some different questions other than the usual ones.
Okay.
So looking forward to that.
Is he
About
going to have
September
an
18th.
animal avatar? Is that the wild side we're going to see?
I don't know. I might make him a furry. Who knows? We'll see.
Hey, you know?
We'll see. We'll see what he comes up as. I don't know.
Okay.
What would he be? I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, we'll see. We'll find out. Maybe a tiger or something.
Okay. I'm doing something that might seem rather insignificant. The produced video that I'm working on and I'm almost done with is a response to the implosion at John Piper's Bethlehem Baptist Church. But what the video is really about is why this isn't really an issue that's limited to Bethlehem Baptist, but is an issue with all fundamentalists. And it comes down to the whole egalitarian view of women, saying that women are equal, but they have different roles.
Mm.
And the demand that we return to a more paternal, what's the word? I'm not paternalistic.
Patriarchal.
Thank you. Patriarchal society. Yeah. The way the fundies want us to be more patriarchal.
Mm.
Yeah,
Sounds
first
good.
Texas, now this. Man, they are just leading the way to Gilead.
Mm-hmm. They
Mhm.
sure are. And it's ironic that they're complaining about what's going on in Afghanistan and complaining about Sharia law, and yet they're the ones that are bringing Sharia law here to the United States.
The fact of the matter is under Sharia law, like women in some certain instances can have it better than like fundy women in America. Like it's very targeted,
Levitical
very
law.
specific,
Mhm.
but
Mm.
mostly pertaining to like if a woman like, and it's not the super like fundy Sharia law either, but I remember like I was looking into it. If a woman inherits money from like the death of a relative or something like that, that's hers to keep. But if a son inherits it, he has to spread it throughout the entire family and use it to take care of the family. If a woman makes money like in a job or something like that, that's her money. Like it doesn't go to her husband. But there are other areas that it is a little bit, more restrictive, obviously. Like she can't show her hair, except to females or
Her husband.
basically.
Yeah. Mhm.
So like they're both garbage in, different ways, but considering some of the fundamentalist Christian like women, they wouldn't want women owning property. Like looking at A Handmaid's Tale, you see like if it was a hyper fundamentalist religion that did take over the country in that way, they started off by canceling the women's credit cards, going back to before the equal rights decisions that RBG was able to get. Women weren't allowed to work or have anything in their own name, and they just stripped away from them piece by piece until women were second-class citizens and fertile women were third-class citizens.
Mark Caesar says, we have that same thing here. My girlfriend told me that her money was her own, and my money is too. And Junie has asked a very good question, but I'm going to save that Junie's question for next week, which is what the heck happened in Texas, and it's too close to the end of the show to really get into that, because that's a whole show in itself. So we'll do that next week, Junie. But for today, I want to thank Kitty for coming, and thank you, Mr.
Thank
Bear.
you for having me.
Thanks for having me along. It's been good.
And thank you, Randy, for coming in at the last minute and sharing your story.
Yeah.
And happy birthday to Mrs. Bear.
Yes,
yeah, thank you.
Happy birthday to her.
Thanks.
And to everyone, have a great week and live your life. Bye.
Bye.